Information soaked inside the mind. Wisdom, experience, we're focused on your grind. Understanding comprehension through the quotes and all lines. And respect that should be given to your folks at all times. Expect to be amazed with what I'm posting online. From the funky instrumentals to my logos and designs. Message on the garment, plus it comes with hard rhymes. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and respect at all times.
What?
There was a king buried in a mound in Savannah, Georgia. This mound site is called the Bilbo Mounds, right? The Bilbo Mounds has its own island, its own harbor, right? All man-made. The Bilbo Mounds were aligned with the solstices and equinoxes for agriculture. They practiced the laws of Ma'at in South Georgia. This site is 1,000 years older than Egypt. Crazy, right? We know the truth now.
Now, as you can see, the oldest golf course and country club in North America sits right on top of the Bilbo site. We know the truth now.
Oh shit. That's a mound in Japan. Over 116,000 mounds exist in Japan, and they have their emperors buried in them, just like the mounds in the United States. Okay? But this isn't about mounds. Actually, I'm not even going to bring up a lot of sources like I always do. In fact, I'm going to talk about what I believe has happened in the world. What am I talking about? After doing some genealogical research on multiple families, just a few families, okay? I'm starting to get a picture of what really happened. Why did I bring up there being mounds in Japan? Because I did a video where I showed there's mounds everywhere. There's mounds in Europe, there's mounds in Japan, there's mounds in Asia, there's mounds in Americas, all around the Americas, north, south, whatever. There's mounds in Europe. I think I already said that. There's mounds everywhere. You know where there isn't any mounds? This dusty place right here. Yeah, this dusty place right here. Now, the story is, this is where mankind started. That didn't come around till the 1980s, but they used to say mankind started up in here back in the day. But we know it really started in America. But, okay, so what am I getting to? Mounds everywhere except for Africa. Well, genealogical records show that our family members are going with their surnames. Well, our surnames are shown coming from here to the Americas. But I'm showing the surnames already being prominent in the Americas. So then I start to think, did they come and colonize the Americas? With the, black liquor people from Europe come and colonize the Americas and started making people take on certain surnames? Or did the surnames already exist in the Americas and they took them to Ireland, Scotland, and all those? And then when the issues happened up there, which we'll get into, they started coming back home. Then when you start to know that we got places all around the United States, without going into it, that are very much so named as similar names in Europe, you start to ask even more questions, because the first thing they want you to believe is that the YT folks in Europe came to here and said, hey, I like this place, I'm gonna name it after Paris back home. But what it really is the Indians who had named this Paris took that name overseas and called it Paris there. And then they came back after the debauchery. So what am I getting to? Well, there's mounds everywhere showing that the Indian copper-colored people possibly were a worldwide people, right? Because they had similar things. They're putting the emperors in the 116,000 mounds in Japan. They put the caciques and the chiefs in the hundreds of thousands of mounds in the Americas. Very much so the same. So, but Africa has none of that, other than the Egypt there that we created and tried to help out. But what am I getting to? We know now that the YT folks were created from these folks. The, as Bobby Hemmett put it, counterfeit spirits, or just a bad carbon copy of who we are. And those people never did any kind of world-like progress. The entire time as the Indians from America was coming to Europe and building mounds and castles, and going to Asia and building mounds and castles, and going all the way to Philippines, all these structures that have been built that have very similar symmetries, geometric shapes, whatever. That goes to show our significance across the world, except for in this dusty place. Now, these people, they only got Egypt, and they try to claim that that's not theirs. These people have been known for doing things that cause recessive genes. What is that? That's either having relations with a family member, which would cause immediate recessive genes. Out of 1 in 4 children typically are going to have some kind of defect if you do that. As well as they have things where they have relations with animals. Okay? So, if they do those things and they create something called albinos, we know now through a video I've shown from some YT folks, they say, hey, once the albinos came into play, the melanin that coats the cell wall allows for genetic modification using UV light to be accepted into the cell, because prior to then, the melanin in our skin also coats the cell, causing the UV light to be blocked or just absorbed instead of allowing them inside of our cell. We literally have they called it a melanin shield, keeping people out of our DNA. But when they got to the point to where things got so recessive, they were able to enter in and create this new race. That's why people keep saying it's a new race that haven't been around for that long. But then the story goes, as that race is created, coming up through here, creating Arabs, they eventually come into up here into Europe, and I got videos about this. They say they were Anglo-Saxons and Jutes in Germany that started slowly going into each of these countries and taking over the people's country as well as their name and their likeness. So the Germans, Anglo-Saxons and Jews would go to France. They would kick out the Black Franks and call themselves the new people, the Frenchmen. They would kick out the Spaniards. Those Spaniards went back home. They would call themselves Spanish. Kick out the rest of these folks, as they did the Poles. Now they're Polish. All that. I've talked about the ish factor, right? Now you've kicked these people out, and these people have to go back home where they started. Okay? So now I'm seeing how the world was. We're thinking as Indian Americans that we're uncovering. Now, a lot of y'all have been talking about this for a while, so it ain't like some of us, I'm more so just now coming into my own understanding of it, but I give credit out to like Copper Empress and Rashad and several others out there. Y'all know who y'all are, that has been saying forever. These places were over here already. Those people came here. Those are our people up there. Blah, blah, blah. Y'all been saying it forever. And I 100% see it. I see it. Because take it, for instance, the Dunn surname, Dunn. It means the brown complected one. Well, up in here in Ireland and in Scotland, there were your Dunns. Were there. But there's more Dunns in America than there are here. Another thing is there are full-blooded Cherokee Indians that bear the last name Dunn. And we do know now, even in the dictionaries, the word Dunn means the brown complected one. So then you have to ask the question, how did the Dunns in America also get to here? Well, that's because we've been moving around the world. We've been trying to get this thing civilized until we ran into, and it was working. I bet it was working until we ran into these counterfeit spirits of this dusty place and tried to set up a college called Egypt, where they all can come and learn. Pythagoras, Socrates, all the whatevers. They all can come and learn what we've been doing already back home. But when they got there, it was just debauchery. You can't teach an African much. You really, if you could, they'd be using that information to fix that up. Okay? But I'm starting to see what happened. America was here first. We were here first. We moved all over the earth. Or it was a multi-regional population and they populated certain parts of the earth, but they had very similar features and also practices. It's the cultural practices that make me believe we went everywhere, like the mounds, okay? So that's why I believe that over the multi-region. I still believe of a multi-regional thing, but still I believe that happening in Americas. But regardless of the multi-regional thing, I just wanted to say before this time ends that we did all this stuff, came here, tried to teach these niggas, and we got the hell out. That's my opinion. We taught them, and we probably shouldn't have taught them. Because whatever was keeping them here was keeping them away from us. You know they lying about saying, we've been going places for years. They lying.
Dropping heat rocks on y'all bitch ass. You know what I'm saying?
There's a place in America a lot of people don't know about. This place is called the Badlands in South Dakota. Articles from the 1800s said there were massive pyramids, temples with gigantic domes, buildings carved out of the side of mountains in this area called the Badlands. Artifacts and skeletons have been found there, over 10,000 years old. This area was bombed. Now it just looks like a rocky desert area. But in the old newspapers, it said there was pyramids, ancient buildings built out of the side of a mountain, and temples. We know the truth, man.
All right, so I'm in the Badlands National Park here in South Dakota, and just looking at all these natural formations we've got here in the Badlands. I mean, if those don't look like megalithic blocks, I don't know. I mean, can zoom in. Windows. Pillars. And it's just everywhere. Like, this is natural. I'm in the middle. You know? There are rattlesnakes here, so this place. This is the first stop I made. I have my headphones on trying to alleviate that wind, but I don't know if it's working. That sun's not too zoom back out. There's that natural. Pyramidal. Anyways, I'm going to be making quite a few of these. Try to pick out the best ones, so I'm not just flooding the feed with Badlands. But I took my kids camping here about 10, 15 years ago. I don't even know. It was so frickin' hot. Couldn't hardly do anything. Sorry, this one's a little long. Thanks for watching.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
There is an abundance of evidence in the lower Mississippi region, and listing a few sites won't truly give the proper scale of just how many sites there are within just a few miles from the banks of the Mississippi on both sides of the river. A few of these sites include King's Crossing, DePreto Mounds, Aden Mounds, Ghost Site Mounds, Mazik Mounds, Peck Mounds, Raffman Mounds, Transylvania Mounds, Mott Mounds, Plum Bayou, and Troyville Mounds. This is just a limited few. And it doesn't include sites that are said to be some of the oldest and most significant sites on the continent and in the world. When we compare the position of Memphis, Tennessee on the Mississippi River to Memphis, Egypt's location on the Nile, a few undeniable similarities pop up. For one, ancient Memphis is said to be the city that united Upper and Lower Egypt due to its unique location on the Nile, which was north of Upper Egypt and south of Lower Egypt. Ironically, Memphis, Tennessee plays the exact same role in its location on the Mississippi. South of St. Louis would be considered the Upper Mississippi, and north of the Delta and New Orleans, which would be considered the Lower Mississippi. The only difference being that the Mississippi flows south into the Gulf of Mexico, aka the Egyptian Sea, and the Nile flows north into the Mediterranean Sea. But for some reason, the north is called lower and the south is called upper. The charlatans say it's because it's where the flow of the Nile is coming from, which honestly, that doesn't make much sense. I may have bought the elevation as a reason they called it Upper Egypt, but since nobody proposes it, I'll keep my money. Another unmistakable similarity is the fact that Memphis, Egypt is located at the head of the Nile Delta.
Dropping heat rocks on y'all bitch ass. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so I found this in the Library of Congress. This is my third time doing this video, TikTok, but 1724, The Conquest of Mexico by Antonio Salas. Now, these people are melanated Indians, but before we get to that, look at the structures in the back. Look how high they go. Look at the little steeple things or whatever on the top, reaching all up, what y'all would call, free energy like things, but we're going to look closer at this. But this is 1724 depicted. Now, like I said, I saw this in the Library of Congress, and I could tell it was a book because here's the book cover, hardbook cover, the other side of the book cover, and the pages. And in the middle, there's the little fold. So we know that this is in a book, so I had to get on the hunt for this book. And as you can see, the people are melanated compared to the Spaniards. Even look at the hair and the shortness of it compared to the Spaniards, okay? And look at the people's their whole physique, just like and different from the Spaniards, just like us today. You know what I'm saying? And these are melanated. There's your Spaniard. Easy to see, right? Hairstyle. Look at that hair right there. Look at the hair. And here's a whole plethora of them, okay? If you think that they were getting the depiction wrong. But I knew that these were our building structures because you can see the melanated Indians in the window. So I scoured around looking for this book, and I'm still scouring, okay? All of these are links that I selected, and a lot of these books, all of them, did not have the actual drawing inside of them. They were all altered versions of the book because it's being censored. Here's one of the books, so you can know that I'll go into the books. And what I do is I open them all the way up and I scroll through to see at least if I can see that drawing. So at least if it had this drawing in it, then I know that I'm in the right book that I'm looking for, right? It's literally showing me a description of them. So if it doesn't have this, then what am I doing? Reading it. Now, when you go looking for these books, these old books that have been altered, it will be possible to find remnants of them through other means. What am I saying? This is eBay. Somebody's selling a book on eBay. Now, they didn't show that particular drawing, but they showed other drawings, which I'm going to get in closer to. This shows us playing on like Mayan-like temples, which are all throughout Mexico, playing on these temples and enjoying ourselves. This also shows a city, a compound, an actual place that does not look like some TP set up like stuff. These are stone structures. Now that was on eBay. I was also able to find the book on some other random website, and I noticed that it had to be the correct book because it has the same drawing from the Library of Congress. But this one sold out and it doesn't have a full digital version. I just got lucky that they actually put this in there. Digitized on here, because these are the only photographs they show for it. And so you can see I'm on the same site and I'm zoomed in. And so that lets you know that there's people that know that they're keeping up this censorship. And not only that, the censorship was so major back in the day, in the 1700s, 1600s, whatever, that there's so many books printed of the fake versions that it makes it hard to find the real version. And that was by design. Now I'm going to come to this book that I've read before, that I'm going to show you that how these people would censor us and who it was that censored us for hundreds of years. Also Europe. But before we get to this same thing happened in another book, which is why this actually prompted me to go back towards that book, which is this book. Somebody has showed me this book and this cover or title page or whatever within on a YouTube video long ago. Eventually, I found the English version of it, and I'm going to show you that. But notice this is the Spanish version. Notice you have a melanated Indian. You notice you have curly hair, with the bow and arrows and feathers. But when I found the YT version, which is still in Spanish, but they brought it over and it's in England, in the US or Europe or wherever now, they've placed a YT head in its place. Let me get close so you can see it. But this ain't even the only version, because that almost has a little bit of shading, almost making you think that it could be the Indian, right? But there's other messed up versions of this book with an even more YT head and curly hair. Not even curly, but like, the little poof things they had. I don't know what they call. Here's another version. These people be playing. I would show right here, but it almost looks like breast, even though this is a dude. It's supposed to be a dude. And here you have one that's even more obvious. Same book, but the head is very much so unmelanated compared to the rest of the body. Now, these are real books. These are real reprints of the same book, which I found on another website, finally, that had this guy on it. Now, notice how obvious this is correct. Okay, and he's stepping on what looks like a Bible and on a crown. You know what I'm saying? With the little scepter. And I wonder, you know what? I'm just now thinking about this. Stepping on the crown and scepter, like stepping on that Christianity and the Spanish crown coming over, trying to take over the Indians. Just thought about that. But regardless, this is the actual book. And I found it on another website, which is in all French or Spanish. This could be, I think this is one of the two. I think this is French though, but I found it on a website that actually had the real thing. So just think about that. In the American websites, it was hard to find the real thing. On these French, other, websites, I can find sometimes somebody showing an actual, digitized version of the real thing. And inside this book, you can literally see even more melanated Indians on the couple of actual drawings that they showed. Just to kind of put in more close, look at the hair, look at the high colored melanation. And I don't know what he's stepping on. Them almost looks like something you use for going through snow, but I don't think they're going through snow. And there's another melanated Indian right there. Now again, let me bring you to a book that talks about this. It says, at this distance of time, when the state of the world is so different from what it was in the 16th century, the 1500s, it may not be readily conceived how easy it was for the Council of the Indies, through the power vested in it, of permitting or prohibiting the general circulation of all writings relative to America, to keep the rest of Europe in a state of darkness respecting the history of the new continent. It says, for these centuries, those who successfully composed that council, the Council of the Indies, exercised their functions as censors, censorship, book publication alteration, stopping the circulation of Spanish books who were telling the truth, censoring the truth of America having melanated Indians who spoke Hebrew, who practiced certain religious practices and things of that nature, with the greatest vigilance. If powerful patronage or inadvertence on their part suffered, or whatever. It kind of keeps going, but it starts to give examples of how they did censorship. Even on this page, it says the secret correspondence of Cortez with Charles V, together with the rigorous censorship which was exercised by the Holy Tribunal, the Council of the Indies, successfully proved that even this least offensive view of the subject was to be expressed with reserve. Meaning, hey, if you want to talk about the letter between these two guys, you better keep some of that information about America out of there. Because Mexico is America. Get it out your head that it's not. If you think it's not, you're an idiot. This whole continent, the whole north and south connected landmass is America. And in that conquest of America, they found melanated Indians. And they were telling about those melanated Indians until the Council of the Indies told them to stop it. Now, they were still doing it, but it looks like they weren't putting these books into publication as much as the other books. They're altered versions. But you see the structures, you see the people, you see the lies. And you can see some if you can find some. It ain't easy, but you can find some. And you can see how to fucking deal with these people's lies.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Did you know there are more pyramids in America than there are in Egypt? In fact, I would go as far to say there are more pyramids in America than anywhere else in the world. Most of them are just buried and covered up, hidden right beneath the surface. Like this one here, Tum Tum Mountain in Washington State. I mean, just look at these similarities between one of the now famously uncovered pyramids. It would look just like a hill to most of you blind observers today too. But the perfect angles and symmetry are undeniable. Just look at the shadow it even casts. Nature does not work in such perfect straight lines and symmetry. And when you take a look at it from above on Google Earth, it becomes even that much more obvious. You can even see the base of the pyramid here. Just one of dozens of pyramids in Washington State. But look how clear it is. From any angle you can find on Google Earth, from any street view, which unfortunately, believe it or not, is kind of hard to do for the street views because it stops abruptly right about here. And there's a big private no trespassing sign and a gate here. And that's as far as you can see on street view. But here's a little more video of it from Google Earth. You can see where that street view down at the bottom just abruptly ends there at the base of the pyramid. I mean, mountain. And then you see that nice little top squared off from the pyramid. Another striking similarity to the Egyptian pyramids. But this is Tum Tum Mountain in Washington State. Check it out yourself on Google Earth and let me know what you think. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
What's that, brother? You know what I mean? But we just don't think about this, that we built these buildings. And you have Roman-looking Hebrew-like people, and you have references to them building porticos within their caciques upon the mounds, which of course a lot of those are gone, but even most of your state capitals sit upon upon the hills. When you look at them, let's go back. State capitals, buildings. When you look at them, let's see if we can get a close up. Let's do building entrance. We put entrance. As you can see, you typically have to go up some steps before you get into the entrance. Sitting upon a mound, right? Let's find another one.
40 million black people in America are the role models for 1.8 billion black people in the world. When we say something's cool, it's cool in Tibet. When we say something's a dud, it's a dud in North Korea. We have mastered culture, community, and cool and creativity, yes or no? So now all we have to do is switch, become bilingual, and master capitalism, commerce, and a new community. Don't go from rocking the mic to owning it. So I want you just to shift your brain. In other words, you are the capital. You already have what you need. When you walk in a room, you are unique. Everybody wants to be you, except they don't want to be black.
You gotta learn to stand on your own feet, boy. I may not always be around to help you. Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.